Just look at the list of blue chippers who are going to be in attendance for Miami hosting Florida State this Saturday. This is going to be one of the biggest recruiting weekends in Hurricanes history.
You are Locked On Canes, your daily podcast on the Miami Hurricanes, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And the Hurricanes are in play to at least try and flip so many blue chippers who are committed elsewhere. I don't know what their success rate is going to be, but I don't know if I can remember another year where they're working this hard at this many flips 6 weeks before National Signing Day. I am Alex Dono, University of Miami alumnus, co-host of Locked On ACC and writer for Canes County at Rivals. And thank you so much to the everydayers for making Locked On Canes your first listen and your first watch today. We're available free wherever you get your podcasts. We're free on YouTube. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Place your first $5 bet, and you'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. We're going to talk on this episode about the Miami Hurricanes mentality. Of course, it's a rivalry game. I think the players may be ignoring this. We cannot ignore how bad Florida State has been to start the year, but we'll talk about whether or not that's going to affect Miami's mentality heading into this game. We'll talk about where the Seminoles could potentially hurt Miami if they want to pull off a big upset this weekend, but we're going to get into all of that after we get into a lot of recruiting, and I'm happy to be joined by my colleague at Canes County. He's the publisher at canescounty.com, Marcus Benjamin. So first and foremost, Marcus, you've been covering recruiting for a long time. Miami already has a nice class of 2025 verbally committed, but I don't know if I can remember, 6 weeks before National Signing Period, trying to land this many blue chip flips who are committed to other places.
Yeah, I can't quite remember a time where they had this many flip candidates as well. I count about close to 7 or 8 players that Miami will have at Hard Rock Stadium that are committed to other schools that Miami is trying to flip. And it's a golden opportunity for the Hurricanes to really build up a class that's already a top 10 class as it sits right now. So if they're able to flip just 2 of these players, then they have potential to get a top 5 class. And I think it's definitely possible. It's definitely possible with the energy that's going to be in that building that day. I know the coaches are going to be pushing hard to flip certain candidates. And if the game turns out just how Vegas thinks it will, a 3-touchdown game, then I think it's going to swing in the favor of the Hurricanes when it comes to these recruits. So it's a golden opportunity for Miami to take advantage of on Saturday night.
Perhaps the most star-studded visitor on a big list of those is going to be the top player in the state of Florida, top rated cornerback in the class, DJ Pickett. DJ has been committed to LSU for the past few months. Obviously, he's kept things open enough that he's still made some Miami visits. Pickett is expected to be in the recruiting section this weekend. You see Miami still chipping away there for DJ. Do you think the Canes might be able to get this one over the finish line?
It's definitely possible. It's definitely possible for Miami to do so. They have been relentless in this recruitment before he committed to LSU, and now even after. They made a good impression on him for the Florida game to start the season. He was one of those recruits in the stands for the Florida game. So I think since then, he's kind of seen what Miami is building this season. I think the biggest battle is just LSU. LSU is also a very good team right now. They are still very much in contention to win the SEC. So if they have a successful season as well, then it's going to be still tough for Pickett to flip to Miami. I don't believe Pickett will flip like this weekend, so I wouldn't quite expect that to happen. It could. I mean, anything can happen, but I wouldn't expect it just yet, but I think this is something that is going to go down all the way down to signing day, which is now, pretty close. It's about 5 or 6 weeks away, signing day.
Yeah.
So we are approaching that pretty quickly here, and I think Miami is going to do well in continuing to make a big impression on Pickett. When it's all said and done, right now it's a coin flip, but I put my money on the Hurricanes, man. I do put my money on the Hurricanes to eventually flip DJ Pickett in the end. But right now it's a coin flip. We'll definitely learn more about the situation after the game concludes and well into Sunday and the rest of the week. Just kind of what kind of impression Miami makes on Pickett. But the fact that his cousin is already on the team, and also Cannon Pickett, who's a 2026 recruit, another family member, is going to be in attendance as well. I think it's a great opportunity for Miami to really communicate the family affair down in South Florida that's brewing with the Picketts.
It's a great point on the family ties. Now, Miami's also going to be hosting another top defensive back who has family ties to the Gators, and he's been verbally committed to Florida, and that's a 4-star cornerback Ben Hanks. What are you hearing there on Miami's quest to flip Hanks? And with DJ Pickett, obviously LSU is doing very well. Florida, not as much. They did just get a big win against Kentucky, but the job status of their head coach is very much up in the air. Do you think there's a good opening for Miami and Ben Hanks?
Yeah, I certainly feel a lot more strongly about Miami flipping Ben Hanks than DJ Pickett at this point of his recruitment. This is a recruitment that has kind of been up and down, leading up to his commitment to the Gators. But in recent months, I feel like Miami's gaining momentum here. Ben Hanks did visit a couple of weeks back to Hard Rock Stadium, so now he'll be back again for the second time this season. So I'm excited to see kind of what progress Miami can make with Ben Hanks. Of course, he's a local talent, long, just a really crafty corner. Miami's chock full of defensive backs at the moment, but I don't think they would definitely turn down a commitment from Ben Hanks should he want to flip from the Gators to Miami. If there's any player that I would maybe say that could possibly flip to Miami after the weekend, I would say it's probably Ben Hanks, because he is that, that local talent that Miami has been on pretty hard since for a while, but I would say more so after he committed. They've been really kind of pushing and continuing conversations with Hank. So I think it's a really good possibility, and I wouldn't be surprised if he flipped to Miami after the weekend.
I like that. Well, we're only getting started on this episode of Locked On Canes. Always nice when we can pick Marcus Benjamin's brain, not only on this recruiting stuff. We're going to talk about the Miami versus Florida State matchups, but staying on the recruiting tip, you've also got players who are committed to USC and Ohio State who are going to be at this Miami versus Florida State game this weekend. So what other possible flips could we see between now and National Signing Day? My friends, you want to keep it locked right here. We're nowhere near done yet on this brand new episode of Locked On Canes. My friends, I know you're ready at FanDuel.com. And yeah, Marcus mentioned it. Big spread for this weekend's game. Miami Hurricanes favored by 20.5 points now on FanDuel. Basically a 3-touchdown spread when they host the Florida State Seminoles. If you like Miami, or maybe you're afraid that Florida State's going to cover, whichever side you're on, you can check it out and check out all the numbers at FanDuel.com, America's #1 sports book. And NFL fans, you can start the season with a big return on FanDuel. So when you get a hunch in the middle of a game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more right on the same page where you place your bets. You'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com, America's #1 sportsbook. Thank you so much for making this Thursday episode of Locked On Canes your first listen and your first watch today. We're free wherever you get your podcast. We're free on YouTube. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. We got Marcus Benjamin from canescounty.com with us. So, Marcus, I mentioned we've got multiple players who are verbally committed to Ohio State, like defensive lineman Jarquez Carter, Tarvos TJ Alford is going to be at the game. You've got USC verbal commits, like I hope I'm saying his name correctly, the 4-star corner Shamar Arnow, Hayden Lowe, top edge rusher who's committed to the Trojans coming in. What's your outlook on some of these players? Like Jarquez Carter in particular is someone it seemed like Miami had a lot of momentum with initially before he ended up committing elsewhere.
Jarquez Carter, I think, is an interesting one just because he's teammates with Micah Newton, who's already committed to the Canes. So that he is being talked to about flipping to Miami probably almost every day here. He had a really strong connection. I spoke to him at the Rivals five-star in June, and he raved about the Hurricanes and just the relationship that he has with those guys. I was almost ready just to say that he was going to commit to Miami at that time. But then, the Ohio State smoke started to, arise at that time. So Ohio State kind of surged in front for his commitment in the months of July. And then eventually when he committed. So I know the Hurricanes still want Carter because he's just an outstanding talent. I was blown away about just his talent that those particular days at the Rivals 5-star, just really great quickness and strength. He's just a perfect combination of both. He's that perfect defensive tackle that you want to kind of anchor a defensive line. So I know the Hurricanes are going to try and push, and I know that they're going to make a really great impression on Carter once again. So I'm not sure if he'll flip after the weekend, but that's a commitment definitely to watch, or potential flip to watch up until signing day, because defensive tackles are just so coveted, and when you can find one as talented as Carter, you definitely do whatever you can to kind of get him into the class. So I think that's definitely a recruitment to watch up until signing day for sure.
Any of those others you'd watch? Like, what about Hayden Lowe, who's he's committed to USC. He's from California, so a lot of times the guys who end up flipping from USC are like the Hilton Drake Stubbs, who are from Florida, and maybe they decide they don't want to go that far from home. But Miami's trying to do the opposite. I know Jason Taylor was out in California, watching Hayden Lowe play last week. So Miami's really building that connection. Is there something to look out for there? Do you think Lowe could be someone who might actually flip?
Yeah, I think it's a possibility. Like you said, it's tough to get a California kid to commit to a team that's all the way on the other coast line. So I think it's a possibility for sure. I spoke to Hayden in the spring, and he raved about the Hurricanes as well. Really liked the campus and his visit during that time, and really likes what they're building over here in Miami. Of course, USC not having the best season. I think they've just been kind of unlucky in some games. But I think he, sees this opportunity to visit Miami once again. And if I were him, I would visit Miami again as well if I was invited. So I wouldn't put my money on him flipping just yet. We'll see kind of, what his feel was of the visit after this weekend here to really kind of tell if that is a possibility. So, I think much is yet to be seen in his recruitment, but I think Miami started out well with his recruitment, with his visit in the spring. Obviously, they've kept contact with him now visiting. So it's definitely a recruitment to watch. But another USC commit, I think Miami probably has a better chance in Shamar Arnow, you mentioned earlier. This is a guy who has ties to South Florida. He's originally from South Florida. He's playing over there in Georgia now, and like you said, he's a guy who's committed to USC from Georgia, so he might want to stay closer to home to Miami. Miami, I think, is very interested in Arnaud, and I think that recruitment is definitely a recruitment to watch. Again, I'm not sure if he'll flip after this weekend, but I think Miami has a golden opportunity to make a big impression with Arnaud. And another guy who was at the Rivals 5-star as well. He really impressed me and others at that camp. So I think he's a very talented player that Miami will continue to push for. So watch out for more momentum building with Shamar Arnaud.
Top uncommitted player who's going to be visiting is most of the guys that we talk about. The Miami's got a bunch of their own verbal commits visiting, which is huge. You want to, keep reinforcing their commitments. A lot of guys committed elsewhere, but then you've got linebacker Kellen Wy from Armwood, who is not only is he uncommitted still, he's down to a top 10. So there's been some smoke from Miami. There's been some predictions for Miami to land him. Do you feel that way? And where do you think Miami stands with Kellen Wy?
Yeah, I think Miami's in a really good spot for Kellen Wy at this point. It was a little surprising that he put out a top 10, him being a 2025 recruit, and signing day is weeks away. Usually a top 10 would be, maybe a year or 6 months before signing day, somewhere in that range. So I thought it was a little interesting that he would put out a top 10. I feel Miami is definitely in the top 3 at this point in his recruitment. So ever since the game where he kind of destroyed Miami Norland at the beginning of the year, the recruitment with Miami has been, pretty solid and pretty consistent. He visited also for a game this season, so this would be his second game visiting Miami. I think there's a real great possibility, especially with Gerard Pringle, the running back, committed to Miami as his teammate over there at Armwood. Miami also is interested in Tyler Williams as well, a receiver committed to Georgia. So there's definitely a Armwood to Miami kind of theme going on here, and especially with the absence now of a linebacker. You lost Elijah Melendez from the class and now committed to Auburn. There's definitely a need to add a linebacker to boost this class at that position. And I think Kellen Wy would be an excellent addition to that position group. So I would say Miami is in a very good spot for Kellen Wy, and they can increase their chances after the weekend.
Hopefully Miami gives all these recruits a good performance to watch on the field. They're going to look good on the field, but I want to get Marcus's take and see if he feels the same way that I do. So, on our last episode on Wednesday, we suspected Miami was going to bust out the all-black uniforms. They hadn't made it official yet. They have since made it official, and this is what Miami is going to be wearing 7 p.m. at Hard Rock Stadium against Florida State. And okay, first thing, Marcus, I'm going to put the superstition aside for just a second, because I know there's a sentiment among Miami fans that they usually lose games when they bust out, special alternate uniforms. But putting that aside for just a second, these uniforms look fantastic. I think they look great. I think the recruits are going to love them. I guess just my personal concern, being a traditionalist, and I know you were telling me off air, like the game that really made you a hardcore Miami fan was Wide Right 1. So yeah. You go back a long ways. I just feel like Miami versus Florida State, traditional rivalry. I like wearing the orange jerseys on white pants for that game. I wish that they had either, busted this out maybe for the Virginia Tech game a few weeks ago, or you busted out against Duke next week. I don't feel like Florida State is the one that you wear the ultimate uniform, the alternate uniforms for. What do you think?
I agree with you, Dono. I am more of a traditionalist, like you said. I'd like to see the orange jerseys, at least. If they went all orange, I wouldn't be mad at that either. But definitely the orange jerseys, for me, being a traditionalist, is what I would want to see against Florida State. And to your point, I love these jerseys. I love these uniforms, the all black with the orange. It's really nice. I like it. And I remember the last time Miami was undefeated, they broke out the all blacks against Virginia Tech, and they just destroyed Virginia Tech that night.
Yeah.
So I think this could be a similar type of game. And I think they're doing this for those, 50 or 60 recruits that are coming to the game as well. So I don't hate the idea of busting out the all black unis for this game. But like you said, it's Miami, it's Florida State. I'm more of a traditionalist with all the rivalry games when it comes to college football. I love OU, Texas. I love Michigan, Ohio State. Those type of games, Alabama, Auburn. You kind of want to see those traditional jerseys for those games. So yeah, I love the uniforms. I love the combination. Can't wait to see them in all black on Saturday night. But yeah, I would rather see the traditional unis for this rivalry game.
I could just picture half of the people listening to this are like, yes, preach. The other half are like, wow, you guys sound like you're 100 years old right now. Like, I'm sure this is very, very polarizing, as Miami is going to be busting out the all black uniforms with the orange numbers and orange helmet trim. Now, the other part of it that people are going to bring up is we always lose with the black uniforms. I mean, not entirely true. You mentioned when Miami wore the all black in 2017 against Virginia Tech, they blew them out of the building. Miami all time wearing black uniforms, they're 4-6. So they do have a losing record wearing all black. But I would point out a lot of those years Miami wasn't good. It's like you can blame the uniforms if you want to. You can blame the uniforms, I guess, if you want to. But let's not ignore the fact that, some of those losses were with, people like Al Golden and Manny Diaz at the helm. So I'm not too worried about that part of it. Let's talk when we come back about where Florida State could, if they can, hurt Miami this Saturday, because I don't take it for granted. What did Kennesaw State as a 28-point underdog just handed Liberty their first loss of the season? So crazy things can happen.
Yeah, crazy.
Yeah. Crazy things can happen in college football. Miami cannot let down their mentality one bit. We'll talk about that. You guys want to keep it locked. We're not done yet on this brand new episode of Locked On Canes. And we're not done with Prize Picks. Guys, I'm so happy that Prize Picks is here with us on the Locked On family. I have been playing Prize Picks since 2021, and I have been hooked for the last 3+ years on this. Guys, Prize Picks, you can win up to 100 times your money with as little as 4 correct picks. Prize Picks is the best way to get real money on sports action with over 10 million members and billions of dollars in awarded winnings. Prize Picks has made daily fantasy sports accessible to all. You just pick more or less on at least 2 players for a shot to win up to 100 times your cash. Run your game all season long on Prize Picks. Guys, it's so easy. You go onto the Prize Picks mobile app or prizepicks.com. You select 2, 3, 4, 5 players and just predict if they're going to go more or less than on their stat projections. It's like player props. It's amazing. And you can win, like they said, up to 100 times your money on 4 selections. Guys, Prize Picks puts its members first. So all withdrawals are fast, safe, and secure. When my picks hit, I can get my money in as quick as 15 minutes. So guys, you want to check this out. Sign up today and get $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. Guys, I want you to check this out. Download the Prize Picks app today and use our code LOCKEDONCollege to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, run your game. Thank you so much for making this episode of Locked On Canes your first listen and your first watch today. For your next listen, make sure you check out Locked On ACC. I co-host that show with Kenton Gibbs of Locked On Wolfpack. We just, on today's episode, we went through all the quarterback situations in the ACC. Spoiler alert, Florida State has the worst quarterback situation in the conference. Miami has the best. So we'll see how that plays into this weekend. But check out Locked On ACC wherever you get your podcast. And speaking of which, Marcus, obviously Florida State, they're really their entire offense, including their quarterback situation, really is their weakness. Now, Miami's defense hasn't played great for the past 3 games. So is this going to be the get right game for Miami's defense, or could it be the slump buster for Florida State's offense, in your opinion?
I definitely think it's going to be the get right game for Miami's defense for sure. I had a chance to speak with Jerry Cutts, who covers Florida State for Rivals this week, and he just said that Florida State really just has struggled to score points. I mean, now they're down to their backup quarterback. They benched their backup quarterback last week against Duke. So I hear that they're probably going to play both quarterbacks for this game. And the old adage, when you have 2 quarterbacks, you really don't have one. So I think it's a disastrous situation to kind of go into this week for Florida State. This is an offense that struggles to just move the ball at all, and I would say their weakness is probably their offensive line. And with Miami having a very strong defensive line, I expect guys like Ruben Bain and Simeon Barrow and Tyler Barron to really kind of wreak havoc against this defensive line. Florida State would need to try to run a quick game type of offense to have a chance and run, some bubble screens or some, running back screens to really kind of loosen this defense up, because they're going to be playing with their hair on fire in Hard Rock Stadium. They are looking to prove that they are better than what they've shown in these last 3 games. So the intensity is going to be at a high for this Miami defense. So that could lead to maybe over aggressiveness from the defense. So I think Florida State has a chance to really kind of maybe loosen it up with some quick screens, some quick slants, that type of thing. But the quarterback play has been, atrocious for the Noles. So I could see those plays not executed very well. And, because they still have to run and catch the ball, and they have had issues just catching the football. They're probably, one of the lowest ranked teams when it comes to just simply catching the football. So I just don't think they have the playmakers to really kind of keep up with Miami offensively.
Yeah, I saw this stat courtesy of Tim Reynolds of the Associated Press that Florida State is the only FBS team that hasn't at any time this year scored more than 21 points in a game. That's their high was 21 points against Georgia Tech. Now, Marcus, their defense is a lot better than their offense. And of course, they haven't gone up against an offense like Miami's, number one in virtually every category, including, yards per game, third down. Miami's been unreal at over 60% converting third downs this year. Their red zone percentage is over 91%, which is near the top of the country. So, I mean, you look at this Florida State defense, do you think they have the ability to frustrate Cam and company at times, or can anybody stop Miami's offense?
I don't think anyone can really stop this offense with Cam Ward at the helm, because, I believe Shannon Dawson mentioned this earlier this week. It's even if the defense has the Miami receivers or pass catchers covered, then that's when Cam Ward creates magic. He creates magic out there running around, buying time for his receivers, or eventually running it himself. Now, I would think that Florida State would have a spy on Cam Ward just the entire time, because he has that ability to run for first downs on third or fourth down, So I would think that would be the game plan for Florida State. But even with that, the running game last week came to life for Miami. So I think Miami has a chance to really kind of establish the running game, maybe do some play action pass or some zone read pass option type of plays where it really keeps that defense off balance. I think for Florida State to really have a chance in this game, I feel like they have to score on defense. I feel like they have to get either a pick six or scoop and score or a turnover deep into Miami's territory to, create some momentum for those guys. I think that's the only way they really kind of stay in this game. If Miami just kind of protects the football, plays mistake-free football when it comes to penalties and turnovers, I really don't think Florida State has a chance to win. I think they may keep it close, as far as the spread is concerned. They may keep it within 3 touchdowns. I don't think so. But, I think the only chance that Florida State really has is to, have a spy on Cam Ward so he's not running for first downs and score on defense to keep this within the 20 points.
We've had access to 8 or 9 Miami players this week who spoke to the media. Of course, Mario Cristobal, Shannon Dawson, Lance Guidry had their weekly pressers. How do you feel that their mentality? Because I know, on our Q&A show yesterday, somebody, and it may have been a tongue-in-cheek question, asked me, could this be a trap game? Now, he may have been joking about how Florida State is so bad. It may have been a shot at them. But to me, no chance this is a trap game. It doesn't matter if Florida State is 7-0 or 1-6. Miami's going to be out there trying to go 1-0 this week, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, every week they have the same mantra of, winning 1-0. It's almost like, it's embedded in their brains that motto or slogan is like 1-0 mentality. If this team somehow makes it to the national championship game, they'll be saying it that week as well. 1-0, So first off, I just want to say that I think they're completely focused on every game, the next opponent, and it's Florida State, Dono. I mean, it's Florida State and it's at home, and they're trying to end a 3-game winning streak. And a lot of these guys were on the team last year when they lost to Florida State. So there's a lot of motivation there, just to avenge the loss from last season, end a 3-game winning streak. You're at home. You want to impress these recruits as well. And you're wearing all black uniforms, man. And you haven't been at home for a little while. So the crowd's going to be juiced up and the players are going to want to play great at home. You're going to get the biggest crowd that you're going to get all season. So to say that this is a trap game, there's no way that this team is totally focused on getting to 8-0. 1-0, I guess you could say, whatever you want to call it. I think this is a game that they're going to be completely focused on every play and really just winning every battle, every snap against Florida State, because regardless of the records, it's the biggest game of the year.
No doubt. Marcus Benjamin, he's the publisher at CanesCounty.com, which is the Miami Rivals site. Marcus, let people know what they can find at Canes County and also how they can grab a free trial.
Yeah, absolutely. At CanesCounty.com, you can use the promo code Miami30 for the first month for free. And, on the website, we've got my guy, Alex Dono, creating written content when it comes to After the Storm. It's the day after the game where he kind of reflects on where the program is at that particular point, and also have a mailbag from Dono as well. We also provide, of course, recruiting, inside recruiting coverage, as well as coverage from the Rivals.com national team, which is always providing information on recruiting, as well as the transfer portal as well. And, just a bunch of information when it comes to all of the major programs, including basketball, which is starting shortly as well. So definitely a lot of great content on CanesCounty.com. Check us out.
Yeah, I mean, whether you're into recruiting or not, or just into football, and if you're into recruiting, like when we were talking about all those players who are going to be visiting, Marcus has the full list laid out for you at canescounty.com. And it's not just the list of the players. He's got their rivals rankings, their stars, and all that, where they're from, who they're committed to, if they're committed somewhere else. So if you want to catch up on who's, because we talked about 6 or 7 guys, there's dozens others that we did not cover. So you want to check that out. Thank you guys so much for making Locked On Canes your first listen and your first watch today. Make sure you follow us at Locked On Canes on X. Make sure you follow Marcus at Benjamin Rivals. And we will talk to you guys next time. Game is going to be here before you know it, right here on another episode of Locked On Canes, part of the awesome Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.